Hi, so I'm finally doing my top 5 books of 2018 so far. I have 2 honorable mentions, so those are books that I gave pretty high ratings to, but they didn't really stay with me the way the other books I'm going to talk about did. So the first honorable mention is Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Jenkins Reid. I gave it something between 4 and 4.5 stars. The synopsis of this story is pretty much Evelyn Hugo, who is a huge Hollywood star, decides to tell her life story through Monique, who is a journalist at this gossip magazine. And the kind of basic 2 questions we get at the beginning of the story is why would she choose specifically Monique to write her biography, and second question is pretty much who was Evelyn Hugo real love. It sounds pretty shallow, but it's a lot deeper than you think, and I really enjoyed it. The second book slash play is Moliere's The Misanthrope. There isn't much of a plot there, which could be also why this play didn't really stay with me. Pretty much Moliere shows the hypocrisy of the aristocrat society in the 7th century France. The main character, whose name I cannot pronounce, despises flattery, wants people to be sincere in their interactions with other people, which is very noble, but you kind of see that it doesn't exactly work out in real life. The ending is kind of open-ended, and some people thought that was very anticlimactic, but I really liked it actually, and it's a lot, like, far less moralizing than his other plays in my opinion. And yeah, it ends on kind of a cliffhanger. Okay, sorry, I got distracted for a second. I realized I was getting subscribers like really fast, like really fast for me. I got like 3 subscribers in a row in like 10 minutes. I was like, okay, that's suspicious. So I looked it up and checked YouTube, and turns out Cassie from Bookish For Eyes made a shout out, and she talked about my channel, and she was so nice. She said she liked my wrap-ups and like the way I talk about books and the synopsis that I give, that it makes her want to read those books. And I was like, this is the best day of my life. So thank you so much. It was really nice. It really made my day. Now I'm stressed, like what if I give a terrible synopsis to all of the books that I'm going to talk about next. Okay, so I forgot to mention that The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is a very diverse story. Evelyn is Cuban and Monique is half black, and there is a great LGBT plus representation. Okay, so now let's get to my top 5 books of 2018. The first one was a huge surprise to me because after I finished it, I was like, okay, this was pretty good, and I gave it 4 stars. But then every time I thought about this book, I was like, oh my god, I can't wait to reread it, which is surprising because I really don't reread books that often. And the book I'm talking about is Eleanor, Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail, honeyman. I'm not going to have this book next to me because my camera freaks out every time it's in the frame. What's happening? Okay, so there we go. So this book is about Eleanor, who goes to work, does kind of the same things every single day, dresses in the same clothes, eats the same things, and doesn't really talk to her co-workers that much, doesn't really have friends. And then on the weekends she just buys 2 bottles of vodka and drinks and doesn't really leave the house and doesn't really do anything. So as you can tell, Eleanor is definitely not fine, and you really have to kind of read outside of her perspective a lot, which I found really fascinating. The way Eleanor sees the world is very different from how a normal person would see the world, and I don't know, it was really fascinating and I would really recommend it, and I feel like maybe upon a reread I would rate it actually even higher than 4 stars. Next book is Persuasion by Jane Austen. I love Anne Elliot as a main character. She is the oldest out of all of Jane Austen's heroines. Persuasion talks about Anne Elliot and her family. They're not doing that well financially, so they have to rent their house to a couple. So they have to leave and live in a different city with like different standards because they're not that financially well as they used to be. And Anne Elliot is 27, and she actually was engaged before, but she broke that engagement because of some influences from her family. And now she meets that person again a few years later, and you kind of see how this situation unfolds. I loved it. It's just, it talks about very interesting social issues, but in a very light and witty way, as, you know, Jane Austen does. Yeah, this probably is my second favorite Jane Austen's book. The next book I don't own, but that's Three Guineas by Virginia Woolf. I talked about this book quite a lot, so I will not bore you to death yet again. But this essay, like I said a million times, if you liked A Room of One's Own, you will really enjoy, in my opinion, For Guineas. This essay is kind of a reply to a letter a man wrote to Virginia a few years back, and he asked her basically what she thinks that we can do to prevent the war. What I found interesting is that Three Guineas was actually written almost 10 years after A Room of One's Own, and I think it was written just before the Second World War, and Three Guineas is just so much angrier than A Room of One's Own, but not in an aggressive way, not at all. The audience that she's kind of writing to is also different. So in A Room of One's Own, this was originally a lecture to students in a female college, I believe, while, you know, Three Guineas, it's a reply to a letter from a man who asks what we can do to prevent the war. It was fascinating, and yeah, I definitely recommend reading Three Guineas. The next book is The Tenant of Wildfell by Anne Bronte. We kind of start off with the arrival of this mysterious woman who starts living in the Whitefell Hall, and you know, that starts a lot of gossips in the village. At first we see everything from the perspective of Gilbert, who is very much interested who this woman is and what happened to her. I don't want to spoil too much, but this sounds like such a generic plot, but what happened to this woman, Helen Graham, is absolutely terrifying and just fascinating at the same time. And for a time that this was written, I feel like this would be considered very feminist, so I absolutely loved it. I feel like if you didn't like Wuthering Heights, you would enjoy The Tenant of Whitefell Hall, because in a lot of ways it's similar, but a lot less dramatic. And yeah, Anne Bronte is a great writer, and this was a 5-star book. And the last book is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This is a book about a group of 4 friends who met in college and then moved and then moved to New York together to, you know, pursue their dreams. This book kind of starts off with, you know, 4 different perspectives of each friend, but then kind of focuses on one character in particular and his life story, especially his childhood, which surprised me. At first I was like, yeah, but I thought we would get like all 4 of the characters' perspective kind of in the same amount, but that's not what happened. But it kind of shifts very naturally, and in my opinion it is that character's story, to be honest. If you don't like character-driven books, this is not a book for you. If you don't like books that include a lot of misery and addiction, and just, this is not a book for faint-hearted. I cried a lot while reading this, and you know, this book really splits the book lovers world. I would say 50% absolutely hate this book and 50% absolutely love it, and thankfully I'm in the second category. But yeah, in my opinion, this is a masterpiece, and I will definitely be reading more books by Yanagihara. Okay, so that's everything I have for today. It's been a while since I filmed a video, so I feel like I'm really awkward and kind of got out of the habit of making the videos, so sorry if this wasn't that great. I will record my June wrap-up soon. It will happen, it will be quite late, so sorry about that, but yeah, I will be recording it soon. So see you next video, bye!